Hello, Lynn Watts here with Wyatt the Wonder Dog. And today I brought Wyatt right along with me because today the story is all about Wyatt. Yeah, you're the star today. He's pretty excited about that. So, a lot of times as I'm out and about with my books, I have people ask me, is Wyatt a real dog? He's kind of shocked by that. He thinks he's a real dog. Or they ask me, how did you get started? Or what made you come up with the idea for Wyatt? And so I thought today I would tell the story behind Wyatt the Wonder Dog. I'm not sure that it is as exciting and thrilling as you might think. Of course, Wyatt thinks it's pretty exciting and thrilling, I'm sure, but everything about Wyatt is exciting and thrilling. So there you go. But I started the idea of writing a series of books over 10 years ago. And at the time, I was still working as an elementary school counselor, which I ultimately did for 20 years. And as I taught lessons in the classroom, my favorite thing to do, and my really, I think the best way to teach was to use picture books. So I spent a lot of time, got to be pretty friendly with our media specialist in the library looking for children's books that were about the kind of topics that I felt needed to be taught. And sometimes I found great books. I had certain books that I used every year over and over again. I honestly never got tired of them. I could tell you what some of those were. They were really great books. They were fun, they were engaging, and they really, I think, spoke to children, but they also had a very important message. And that was often what I had a lot of trouble finding. I could find some really entertaining books, but they they might have been an entertaining story, but they didn't have the message that I wanted to teach. So whether that was teaching children why it's important to be good listeners or why it's important to work as part of a team or to cooperate with each other or to be organized, all these kinds of things that I had as topics in the classroom, I could not always find a good story about. And so at some point, I decided, I guess I'll just write some stories. And then the problem or the important part was, so who would be the character in those stories? And that's when Wyatt the Wonder Dog came into existence. So I decided to use a dog, partly because I like dogs. I've always had a dog. I think dogs are very engaging as a character. Most children are familiar with dogs, and they have a lot of the attributes of humans that you can use in a story, right? Yeah, I think Wyatt agrees. Now, you might say, so where did the actual dog Wyatt come from? Did you have, this is the question I get, did you have a dog like Wyatt or that was named Wyatt? And the answer is no. Um, he's a little sad about that, but he thinks he's real anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much. But I never had a yellow lab, which is what Wyatt is in the story. And I never had a dog named Wyatt either. Actually, I was kind of at a loss what to name the character, and my sister came up with the name Wyatt. So I didn't have any prior um, experience with a dog named Wyatt, or even actually a human named Wyatt. I knew of the historical character named Wyatt Earp. And at the time that I started the books, Wyatt was not a very common name. And for that reason, I thought it was a pretty good name to use. So, how do we get a yellow lab? Well, I wrote the stories and did not have any particular type of dog or breed of dog in mind. And then I looked for an illustrator, and that's a interesting story in itself in terms of how I found one. But when I did find Pam Gardner, who illustrated all of my Wyatt books, I said to her, read the story, use your imagination, your creative skills, and come up with the what you think the dog needs to look like. I don't have any prior ideas about that. Now, Pam did have a yellow lab at that time. Yeah. And that is where she got the kind of look and the inspiration for Wyatt the Wonder Dog. So we worked together for about 9 years, really, um, creating those books. We did about one book a year together. I would write the story, and then she would interpret it into the wonderful illustrations that she put into each one of the books. And they're all very unique. They're also very interesting in that you can see the progression of her artistic skills because neither one of us had done this exact thing before. I had never written children's stories. She'd never illustrated children's stories, and we just kind of were winging it the whole way through. So we, both of us, of course, were pretty committed to learning what we were doing. I took a lot of classes in writing, and I joined some critique groups, and I did a lot of things to improve my own writing skills. But I will say I'd always been interested in being a writer. My grandfather was actually a journalist, a writer for a newspaper in North Carolina. And he wrote for the newspaper. He also wrote a lot of poetry. He was quite a talented writer, got a lot of awards for some of the things that he did. So I always loved to read. I loved to read his columns. And I was very interested in growing up and being just like him, actually. My career kind of took a whole nother course until I got involved with my buddy here, Wyatt, and we started writing the story. So that is the story behind Wyatt. It's how he got his name. I will tell you one funny story before I go about the name Wyatt. I'd had the Wyatt books around for a while, and most of my friends had bought them for their grandchildren and so on. And so one of my friends was expecting a new grandson. She knew it was a grandson, and she already had one grandson. And so she was with him one day talking to him about, what do you think we ought to name this new baby that you're going to have, this new little baby brother that you're going to have? And his parents actually had thought about naming him Wyatt, not because of my books, just because it was becoming more and more a popular name. And so she said, what do you think about the name Wyatt? And her grandson said to her, what? You can't name my baby brother after a dog. So that was a pretty funny little story about Wyatt and the name Wyatt. So that's the story behind Wyatt. That's how he came to be in existence. And he is, of course, a very important part of my life at this point, and I hope an important part of yours as well. So as always, thanks so much for all the things that you do to help children. And thanks so much for listening.